Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. We are so excited to welcome our friend John Brown. He's recently released a book called The Most Famous Missourians in Our State's First 200 Years. It's called Missouri Legend, Volume 2. And John is a news anchor and author of 10 Missouri history books, including 4 books this year for the state's bicentennial. John joins us now. Good morning to you from Florida.
Well, yeah, good morning. Good to see you once again. I've kind of relocated since the last time I saw you guys.
How do you like it? Yeah.
John, quick question, though. Here,
Yes.
when are you going to write a book about the famous Missourians after the 200 years, and are Kelly and I going to make the cut?
Well, as I tell everybody, this is Volume 2 because Volume 1 burned up in the big warehouse fire in St. Louis. I plan on doing up to 35 editions of this. So
Wow.
At some point, I just assume I'll include everybody in the state of Missouri. That's my thought.
Well, now, here's the thing. It's like the MC. Now, the MC doesn't usually introduce himself, so we'll have to write a book about you, John.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be great.
All right. Well, you don't consider yourself a historian, yet you've written all these books about the history of Missouri. Why do you say you're not a historian?
Well, to me, a historian is somebody who teaches this stuff in classes, and they do deep dives in like World War II history in Missouri. And as you guys have heard me say before, I'm just a guy who lived in 20 different places, all in Missouri, before I graduated college. And so I just found the people, the places, the things that have happened in Missouri incredibly interesting. So what I write is a surface level to get people interested. And then if they want to do a deeper dive on World War II history or the Civil War in Missouri, there are other resources out there. But I think my job is just to get people as excited about the state as I am about the people and the history and all the famous things that have happened here.
So, John, give us some examples, though. I want the viewers to be chomping at the bit to get this. Give us some just little glimpses of some famous Missourians for the first 200
Well, for example, there's so many names that you see all over the TV all the time, and people don't realize that they're actually from Missouri. You think about a J.C. Penney, James Cash Penney up in mid-Missouri. Then you also have, the O'Reilly family. You have Johnny Morris from right there in Southwest Missouri. You also have Sam Walton. And the one I think really gets a lot of people's attention is when you talk about a Dale Carnegie, the guy who literally wrote the book on business success. And people think, well, he's a famous New Yorker. Well, no, he grew up here in Missouri, but became famous in New York. But his core, the basis for his being was all founded right here in Missouri. So those are the kind of stories that I like to present to people, because you think these famous people are from elsewhere. Yet you find out time and time again that people who are the movers and the shakers grew up right here in Missouri.
It's cool when you dive in and you find these things out. I love that. Now, do you talk about sports folks and also actors?
Well, those are some of the ones that I think are the most interesting. And one thing that separates this book, my first edition came out in 2008, long before Wikipedia was a big deal. And so people ask me, is this just a Wikipedia listing? Well, no, because what I've been able to do in my role in the media is interview some of the people, or at least their descendants. So for example, with Brad Pitt's family, I wrote the entry and then I sent it to Doug Pitt right there in your town and said, so what am I missing? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? And so then he sent me back some things. He said, well, I think you should include this. So those are the kind of things in the book. And then there are others, like there's a whole segment of supermodels from Missouri. And so I've been able to interview most of the supermodels. And so you get a deeper input about what makes them tick. But then you go down a list of famous athletes. And that, I think, is what really motivates or surprises young people, is they read that these guys actually came from your small town. Because too many times in Missouri, I think we have this inferiority complex where we think, I can't succeed because I'm from the small town in the middle of nowhere. Everybody else who makes it is from elsewhere. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a great pedigree. And yet you read a book like this, you find out there are 1,000 people just like you who had no great background, who had no money. They just had a lot of hard work. They had that hard work ethic, which took them to the top. And that, I think, is one of the best things about this book, is getting out and telling people you can't use that inferiority complex as an excuse anymore, that you're from Missouri.
I hear, John, I hear from you, what I love and respect, and you just hit the nail on the head for me, was you're giving hope to people in Missouri who come from a very small town, who think they can't make it. Like what you just said, I was like, you got to get those boys and girls this book to let them know they can do whatever they want.
Right. Well, I graduated in Bell, Missouri. I grew up around Lake of the Ozarks, all small towns. And no one ever told me that I could be a news anchor. I had no idea until I met somebody who said, oh, you can do this. It's going to take this, this, and this. So when I hear people say, well, I want to be an inventor, I want to be an engineer, I want to be an architect, whatever it might be, you don't know that that can actually be done from where you're at. And so to me, the greatest joy I get is going into these small towns and big towns too, and into the high schools and telling these kids, it can be done. Look at this guy. He's from your hometown, the exact same background. He was just 100 years before you, but he did it, and so you can too.
Isn't that, it's kind of a disconnect. It's kind of funny because when you get to know different people who are great actors or whatever, they all come from someplace.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
They obviously come from a lot of them small towns. And Missouri, I'm from here as well, and I think it's a special place, and I love that you're going and talking to the school kids because they do. They just think that they can't do it because it seems too big and too wild beyond their dreams.
I think the biggest compliment I ever got when the first edition of this book came out, and I'm sure it'll happen again, is teachers who and it used to be the fourth grade history project. I think that's kind of changed in some schools. For years and years and years, every child had to do this fourth grade history project about a famous Missourian. And they all did the same 10. And so finally, when I released this first book, the teacher said, thank you so much for doing this because we saw the same people, Harry S. Truman, General John J. Pershing, Omar Bradley. You go down the list of the 10 people that every kid always did. Now they have thousands of options of people that they can profile. And more importantly, people they can profile from their hometown. So now it's not just a history lesson, it's personal.
Right.
And so the teacher said, thank you. I'm enjoying this again because I'm getting to hear new stories. And so the biggest fans of the book have been those elementary school teachers who teach this stuff.
So, John, are you currently working on another book, another series, another one in this series? I mean, you seem like you're busy all the time.
I tell you what, after 4 books this year for the bicentennial, I think that's enough. But I will say this, I think, it's partly pandemic, but I don't think that people know enough about our first 200 years. And so I'm hoping to keep continuing to get this information out there while we're still celebrating the bicentennial, because it kind of got overshadowed with the pandemic and everything else going on. And so I'm hoping with the 4 that I put out over the past year that people do get excited about our state, and they do get excited not only about our history, but also our future, because there's so many amazing things happening here. And I just sometimes think, and I'm in the media, like I say, sometimes we put a negative eye on so many things when we realize, look at all the great things happening here. There's no reason why our state shouldn't be one of the top states moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, you're in Florida now, but you're always going to be a Missouri boy, right?
I'm a Missouri guy at heart, right? Wherever I am, it doesn't matter. If I get a chance to be home, which I will, my daughter goes to school at Missouri State, so I still get to come to Springfield and see you guys all the time.
Well, anytime you're welcome, right?
Yeah, wait, did you move to Florida or are you just vacationing?
No,
I am now with the Fox affiliate in Orlando.
I'm so sorry, I had no idea, John. I'm so sorry, I did not know. Well, congrats to you.
Look at that view he's got there with this pool behind him. How nice is that?
Well, I will say the pool is it's really cooled off. It's not what you think. The pool's down to like 84 degrees, and it's only going to be 86 today. So it's not all roses, guys.
Oh. So, John, how do you decide who to leave out of the book and who to put in? Because you can't get everybody in there, I'm sure.
Okay, only people from Missouri will understand this analogy, or people who have spent some time here, is I use the Jack Buck, Joe Buck analogy. And I always say, where did you go to high school, right? Because that's the Missouri demarcation line. You got to be able to talk about the high school, your founding years. And so I use the Jack Buck, Joe Buck analogy, the sportscasters, is Jack Buck was famous, but he didn't grow up here. He became famous once he moved here and started doing the Cardinal broadcast. Joe Buck grew up here, went to high school in St. Louis, and then went off and then is still doing national broadcast. So Joe Buck's in the book, Jack Buck is not. So you had to have gone to high school here, your formative years.
Okay.
And so I didn't include people like, Eminem, the rapper. When you look in Wikipedia, it says, well, he's from Missouri. But the fact is he was born in St. Joseph as his mother was driving through town. That doesn't count.
Right.
But if you see those listings, it says he's from St. Joe, Missouri. And I also didn't include people who moved here later and became famous. You had to have your roots here. You had to go to high school so you understand this Missouri thing of being on a bus ride for 3 hours to go play a half-hour basketball game.
Right.
Gotcha.
And the thing you
So,
see along
John,
the way, you just got to know that.
How can people get your book?
My website is the only place for signed copies, but you got to hurry with the UPS and the way it's going. It's MissouriLegends.com, and there's all those stories about Missouri. All my books, all 4 from this year, are all there. So I'll sign them. I'll personalize them however you want them for Christmas. I got you taken care of. MissouriLegends.com.
Great
Look at all
Christmas
this guy is great Christmas
Great
gift.
Christmas
Get your
gift.
book right now. This guy's an inspiration. Hey, a Merry Christmas to you, John.
Thank you, John.
Merry Christmas to you
Thank
guys.
you
We'll see you
so
soon.
much. All right.
All right, don't go anywhere. Coming up, we're playing Split Decision.
Yes, and let's eat some more food.
And I'm starving now.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, man. This is like, it's torture to have this right in front of
I
you
know.
and not eat it.